In today's business world, change is the only constant, and mastering transformation is the ultimate key to success. Welcome to Shift and Thrive. I'm your host, Natalie Nathanson. Each week, we'll bring you conversations with CEOs who delve into how they successfully drove critical change in their organization. This show is sponsored by Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service B2B marketing agency. Today's guest is someone I am very excited to speak with. She has nearly 20 years of experience in data and analytics and has brought this into the food industry, specifically focused on a mission of addressing food insecurity challenges. She's a leader in surplus food redistribution and believes in the power of technology to solve complex problems. And her company is the first fully automated food donation platform. She also serves on the board of directors for multiple nonprofits. She is the CEO of Copia. Kimberly Smith, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Natalie. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. And I'd love to start by unpacking a major transformation that I know you led your organization through. And I know that, like it was for many companies, COVID was a bit of a reckoning of sorts. And that under your leadership, Copia really changed the game for what's possible in supporting and working with nonprofits around food redistribution. So I wanted to ask you if you can first kind of talk about the dynamics that your company was facing, like what was happening in the industry, and how did you approach it?
Sure. So you touched on what it is that what we do. So we make it as easy as possible, very simply, to donate surplus goods, primarily food, which is a very difficult item to be able to do this with because of the natural perishable nature of this type of item. And you're also dealing with food safety and so forth. So we've removed the complexities for businesses to do the right thing. And then in turn, be able to celebrate that impact with all the various stakeholders in their organization, their customers, and so forth. So to touch on what you had just spoken to, which was COVID, it was certainly a silver lining for us as an organization because it forced us to take a step back and really evaluate how we were going to support the industry at scale. So if any business, let alone individuals, have tried to donate surplus. As an individual, I don't want to speak for you, but I can't tell you how many times there have been a number of items that have been put in the back of my trunk with every intention to get out there, and they sit there for weeks until I can get to a donation center to be able to donate. Similarly, it's very difficult for businesses to be able to do so because that's not their business. At the end of the day, they're there to produce food or some other product and serve their customers. So we've taken that off their plate because the old process was cumbersome. So if you think about it, if a business wants to donate prior to what we've built now, it is incumbent upon the business to identify which food they want to donate, package it up, organize it. Then they've got to hop on the phone. They've got to call local organizations. If they even find an organization that can pick up, then they need to be able to say, yes, we can take this donation. And yes, we can take this during the time that you want to donate. Now the business has to find a way to get it to the nonprofit. And then once it's there, right, then maybe you get a receipt. Maybe it's sitting in a shoebox, maybe sitting in an email. And there's a lost opportunity as well to be able to measure the impact that it has, both financially, environmentally, and socially. So taking all of those factors into consideration, we decided that we were going to automate this platform and make it super turnkey, because at the end of the day, in order to change behavior, in order to engage businesses to do something that is out of the norm for them, you have to simplify it. Especially restaurants and food service businesses, they've got such a limited time to be able to do so much in the back of house that if we can't make it easy for them, the easiest option then becomes the trash. And we don't want that, right? That's a missed opportunity to feed our neighbors in need. That's a missed opportunity where we're sending more food to landfill and creating carbon emissions. methane gas, actually, which is 80 times more potent than food or than carbon emissions, excuse me. And so, plus they're leaving money on the table. So for businesses, I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with the donation tax incentives that are provided through the
No,
federal
no,
government?
please talk about that.
Okay, so I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but if you have very simply, rudimentary math, if you have $100 worth of food that you're going to throw away, bummer, you throw it away. If you're even tracking it, it's a sunken cost. It's a lost asset. But if you track it and you identify it as waste, you can then submit that on your tax returns and take a deduction of $100 loss. If you donate it, you can actually up to double that amount for an enhanced tax deduction. So now that $100 worth of food that would have gone in the trash is now again not only feeding their community, reducing landfill, but now you get a tax receipt up to $200. So it actually pays to do the right thing. So taking this full circle, we provide all of the data on the back end as well to simplify celebrating this impact for your accounting teams, your marketing teams, your staff, and so forth. And it was a necessity that we had to do if we were truly going to be able to scale this and make it easy for businesses to say yes.
Yeah, I love that. I find it so fascinating and so amazing what the organization has enabled. I'm curious to hear, like, how do you get the business's attention? Because you just talked about like the financial piece that they can get, the tax credits. There's the kind of doing good and having that impact and being able to share that with the rest of the organization. And of which messages did you find resonated most, and how did you kind of scale up, like getting in front of the businesses?
Sure. So interestingly enough, we don't have a sales team. We operate and support businesses currently in 42 states, Canada, and Puerto Rico without a sales team. And the way that we find a lot of success in scaling is through having extremely loyal customers. We have a 99% retention rate. We have customers when they come on board that we become part of their operational process. And that becomes extremely sticky for us, but also they become advocates on our behalf because it's a very, tight-knit community, whether you're in the restaurant industry or work in the hospital space. If you're in food service, a lot of people talk, and a lot of people now, especially, not only, want the tax deductions, but they want to do the right thing. So people are asking left and right, how do I make this happen? And fortunately, we have such an incredible group of donating businesses that they're our biggest advocates.
Oh, and can you talk a little bit about what that process was like as kind of the leader of the organization, going from kind of doing things, I guess, in a more manual approach to kind of bringing the business through that transformation? Were there any kind of key steps, key phases that have led the organization through?
Well, there are always key steps. I don't know if it's a gift or a curse that I forget a lot. It just seems like it was smooth sailing the whole way. I think it's really important that we pay attention to our customers. If they're loyal to us, we're loyal to them. And making sure that we understand, again, how to make it as easy as possible, understand their operations. Um, the There's two components here, though, too, for us. Like, as we're managing businesses that want to donate and making sure that not only, again, we're making it operationally efficient and effective, also we're following food safety and so forth, giving them the tools to measure their impact. There's also the other side, which is the heart of our business, which are our nonprofit partners. And so our nonprofit partners, making sure that we understand what their demands, what their needs are in real time is really, really critical. So, I forgive me in the moment, can't think of a hurdle that we had specifically to bring to this discussion, but along the way, it's balancing two needs from two disparate sets of audiences or partners, and bringing that together and making sure that we're matching accordingly. That's always going to be something that we're fine tuning and tweaking along the way.
Yeah, yeah. And what about kind of the team and the team culture? Were there things kind of in your culture that kind of helped this organically? Were there things you had to kind of change or work through? Can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. I'm very fortunate because when I think about our team, we've got a group of individuals, and as a startup, we've had people. Today, our vice president of operations is celebrating 5 years with us. We've had one person in the last 3 years leave on their own accord. We have a very loyal group of team members that are all aligned in the mission, and so I feel very, very fortunate to be working alongside of them. But I think that was the key to kind of getting over any hurdle that we do encounter. If I think about the largest hurdle, we're still a startup, right? We're a public benefit corporation, but in essence, we're still dealing with the same struggles that any startup is, which is funding and resources and making sure that we, are able to keep up with the demands and the needs of all of our partners. And so the team is really what keeps us going, like makes this successful because everyone cares. Everyone puts on, multiple hats every single day. We decided a while ago that we weren't going to focus too much on defining our culture. And that's because culture evolves as it should, right? With any new person that comes onto our team, they're bringing unique experiences, perspectives. And so we as a group continue to evolve. But there are core values that are non-negotiable for us. And that's the foundation of who we are as a group that supports everything that we do. And that's what helps us overcome a lot of challenges and also helps us prioritize. So when a decision has to be made, we then get to step back and make sure that those are being met. Are we honoring who we say we are in this decision-making process? So that's been really, really critical for us.
Yeah. Can you talk about, are there any areas that you're kind of working through today as you kind of look towards the future? So either on kind of the product side or any organizational changes, kind of going from like what got you here through kind of where you're headed.
Yeah. So this year, we are really focusing on, as I referred to them affectionately a few moments ago, the heart of our business, which is our nonprofit partners. So we have tens of thousands of nonprofits all across the United States. I guess I should tell you a little bit about who they are. We are completely agnostic of any network. The only requirement that we have for a nonprofit partner to receive food through our platform is that they're a 501(c)(3) organization. And that's because our business partners get to take that meaningful tax deduction by doing so. So these organizations span everything from, supporting women's abuse shelters, after school programs, veterans community centers, homeless shelters, rehabilitation centers. And a lot of these nonprofits, having meals to give to their community allows them to bring community members that need that help to the table to then provide wraparound services for. And so we're really proud to be able to support them in a number of ways. And I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones doing all the incredible work in the communities. And so how can we provide them more tools and resources to be able to successfully do what they do and make the impact that they do? So that is certainly a focus this year for us, and we're pretty riled up as a team to see this through.
I love that. I love that. Kimberly, I'd love to talk a little bit about, you like as the leader and your leadership style. I guess starting with, how do you define kind of your leadership style and kind of what you have brought to the table as you've led through these changes?
Oh, if I answer this, you have to answer this after me.
Oh boy.
Okay. Well, I go back to the fact that I'm very fortunate to have the incredible team surrounding me and our company. So I'm starting off at the finish line. So let me put that out there. I am a big proponent of Peter Lencioni. Forgive me if I'm butchering his last name. His management style that he wrote about in a book called The Advantage. I recommend anyone pick it up. He has 5 principles towards a successful, healthy organization. I skipped forward and just went straight to The Advantage, which was the next book. And you're able to pretty quickly pick that up. And I've really bought in and seen success firsthand with that style, which is creating continuity across the board at the top, which then lends down into that same continuity at the levels, the subsequent levels within the organization. So by starting with, and of course, I'm going to butcher this because he is much more eloquent. He wrote a book about it. But essentially, if you can create an environment amongst your team of vulnerability, and I think that might be a misunderstood word, but vulnerability then creates a space for trust. And if we can trust each other, then we can hold ourselves accountable. We can hold each other accountable. We can get alignment. And that's really, really important, especially as a company grows and, hierarchies then become much more prevalent for the alignment at the top before going top down. It creates a ripple effect. And I've seen a lot of success within our organization in implementing this style. Whether they know we're doing it or not, I'm not sure, but it's something that I certainly subscribe to.
Yeah, I think that's great. I've read a few of Patrick Lencioni's books as
Oh, is
well.
it Patrick? Gosh, I knew I'd
Patrick
butcher it. Thank you
Lencioni,
for
yeah.
correcting me. For everyone's sake, Patrick, thank you.
But I love that the vulnerability, and I think he has made great points about it's with your team and it's with your clients, and right, it's just the way you can kind of show up as a professional, as a leader.
Do you subscribe to the same type of style, or do you have a unique one that's worked for you?
I think mine is pretty similar. I think a lot of it stems from my own personality and kind of what I bring to leadership based on who I am as a person or who I am kind of running a business. There was a kind of personality framework that I did with my leadership team a number of years ago called Enneagram. And one of the things that came out of that, it's really like what motivates you as a person. And I'm in that, it's number 6 called Loyal Skeptic.
Okay.
And just like it sounds like the skepticism is always thinking of what could go wrong and how do you mitigate risk and all of that, which is not a very typical profile for an entrepreneur kind of CEO type. We're usually bigger risk takers. And then the loyalty, right, is once you build that trust, so that have that vulnerability and build that trust, you're there's kind of a depth of the relationship.
That's fantastic.
So I think that's like a big piece that was very enlightening to go through that and to really understand that and see kind of how I show up based on that. But I think a lot of my other values, just being compassionate and driven and have high standards. So there's a balance there. You can have high standards and expect a lot of yourself and of others, but also have that compassion and a culture where it's okay to make mistakes and to try and to fail and to show vulnerability. So I feel like it's sometimes things that can seem at odds, but I think they actually work in harmony really nicely with one another.
I completely agree. I have a question for you then. If you're the what skeptic are you?
Loyal skeptic.
Loyal skeptic. Do you find that you surround yourself with counterbalances to that then? If you are not the one, if you are trying to get to the root and really understand something before, a problem occurs, do you find someone that's more of like the go-getter per se? I might be
Yes.
oversimplifying
And I
it.
would say we have a good balance on the leadership team and kind of in the company in general. But I think what going through the Enneagram exercise allowed us to really kind of have that common language and understand where the other person's coming from more. And so it was a very kind of enriching experience.
I love that. I think it brings up another great point, which is you don't want everyone to be just like you, right? You need that diversity. You need people from different perspectives and motivators and so forth. And so building a well-balanced team and also not expecting everyone to rise to the occasion, every occasion the same way. So it kind of fits hand in hand, right? Like I know that someone is going to be attacking something with urgency And so if I need something that's done immediately, I know who to go to versus someone else, that's going to be a little more thoughtful, maybe be the loyal skeptic, right? And sit back and think about all of the things that could go wrong. And so, asking someone else, the person with moves with the sense of urgency, to sit back and think about everything, that's not going to work. They're
Right.
not going to succeed in that kind of task. So knowing those personality types are really important. I agree with you completely. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think it's easy to say like we want diversity in thinking in our organization. It's another thing to really kind of plan around that and let everyone kind of be the best version of themselves, like through that process.
And they all got to understand each other in the process, right? So like this
Right.
wasn't a closed test where only you
Right.
got to see it, right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and the conversations that ensue. I promise I don't work for Enneagram. With the kudos to them, but it
Good plug.
really is an enlightening process.
Great. That's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah, well, and I think too, like in times of change, like we're living in right now in the world and with technology and all of us kind of in and around the tech sector, we see there's kind of different skill sets becoming relevant, and so having that culture where people are not afraid to raise their hand and try new things, and I think it's a very kind of empowering environment.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, Kimberly, I'd love to kind of hear about something else that you're working on at the moment. Is there anything that you're focused on, whether in or out of work, that you're the most excited about?
Well, wouldn't necessarily something came to mind until you said most excited about, and it no longer is what I'm most excited about, but um, you know, uh something that we're focusing on is supporting Los Angeles right now, which is very unfortunate. We have a lot of business partners and nonprofits that are leaning in to support the communities, and we're here to help however we can. I mean, that's what we do at our core. That's actually going back to your question about our transformation during COVID. One of the things that we stood up within 3 days was an emergency relief platform
Wow.
that ultimately ended up supporting World Central Kitchen and delivering with dignity these massive, large scale operations within the state of California and Nevada that were um, uh, supporting programs like Great Plates Delivered and so forth. Um, I was very proud that we were able to do that so quickly then. And so now it's like we've already got the pipes. So being able to kind of lean on what we've already built to be able to support in times of need has been very rewarding. It's kind of bittersweet that we can help and do our part. But that's been an area of focus for our team right now for
Yeah.
obvious reasons.
That's amazing that you're able to provide that support. And I know there's a ton of support needed. I'm curious, like around that disaster support, was that a design feature kind of the platform, or is it more in a happenstance and then you realized the agility that you have baked in and were able to offer that? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so a couple things. I'd love to say it was just we decided that we wanted to support. So this is what we built. It was aligned with our mission, which is connecting surplus to those in need. Um, but it was an iteration of that. So traditionally, we help businesses redistribute to nonprofits. So during COVID, when we were asked to help, um, one, we were asked to help, but two, we desperately also, financially needed to keep our lights on as well, because all of our businesses at the time were caterers and corporate dining. Those were our two largest sectors that were working with us in a very, again, we were a little more manual at the time, but those were the two businesses that completely shut down. No one was going to the office. No one was going to events. We did have some legacy partners that were able to continue to support, like the Cheesecake Factory said, no, this is still very important to us. We will continue to do this work with you, in the communities that we operate in. But generally, like we needed to figure out how to keep the lights on. And so we had this opportunity to be able to support. So out of necessity, I'd like to think that we would have found a way to do it. We probably wouldn't have done it in 3 days. Probably would have taken a little more time. Um, but we have this capability now. It's not our core um, service or offering, because at the end of the day, we're not emergency services. There are so many incredible organizations. And to take one step back, like you kindly complimented us for doing the great work. We're just helping facilitate the great work that's being done by the businesses that are making the donation, making that decision, and the nonprofits in the communities. We're just trying to help. So they're the real heroes and deserve all of the compliments for doing this. And where was I going with this? There was something. Oh, so for us, for our sustainable programs, like we want to build a foundation with the surplus that exists. There's 3 times more food produced than there are mouths to feed. This is not a scarcity issue. Hunger is not a scarcity issue. It's a logistics issue. So our main priority is taking what exists and building that foundation. So then that way we can layer on what's needed versus creating net new food that is just so wasteful. So that's where our focus is. These emergency groups that come in times of disaster that do the great work, we connect and supply, but we're trying to build sustainable, long-standing programs to support communities across the U.S.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It really is.
We're really proud of what we can do to help. So thank you.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. Can you talk a little bit about kind of who you were as a child and how did that impact the career that you've built? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, there's a lot of directions we can go. I am one of 3 children in my family, and my parents were government servants. They worked for the federal government for their entire careers, and because of that, at the federal government, we moved a lot. So every 2 years, we weren't military, we were federal. But every 2 years, we were moving to a new location. And building new friendships and trying to maintain the old ones. So we have a very tight-knit family because we relied on each other, were what we knew. I think it built a lot of resilience for me. I learned how to be able to adapt. So I'm very grateful for that. It certainly doesn't affect everyone the same way. So fortunately, in my experience, it was a wonderful childhood that I got exposed to a lot. I lived overseas a couple times, lived East Coast, West Coast, moved around a bit, got to see the ways of the world from a lot of different lenses. So that was my childhood. But being a federal government child family, it's strict order, right? Like there's a very linear way to doing things, to progressing, and we respect authority and rules and laws and so forth. We're mission driven. And so that certainly influenced a lot of the decisions that I made. I felt like I needed to continue to progress in my old career and the way that I was doing. And the detriment, I suppose, the other side of the coin to that was that I think I was afraid to branch out. My parents always told me, fortunately, we had such incredible supportive parents that we could be anything we wanted in this world. We could be a CEO, we could be the president, we could be a teacher, whatever we wanted to do. And so, although we were on a very linear path, right? You progress the way that you do, there was always this lingering affirmation or so forth that like, there's more out there that you can do. And so it took a while. It took a lot of factors, a lot of years to finally be able to branch out, but that's what I did. I left my old industry and found Copia, and I'm extremely grateful. Extremely grateful. I'm not telling you my age. Not that I won't tell you, Natalie, but not on camera. I'd love to be able to say I wish I made the leap earlier, but you know what? I think it's proof that here I am 20 plus years into my career, and I made a complete change. And was successful in doing so. And so you can change at any point in time, right? Like you don't have to be beholden to this, pre-planned path. You can forge ahead, you can change and iterate, and it doesn't matter what age you're at. So I don't know. I just took you on a journey. I don't know if that answers your question, Natalie.
It does. It does. I think it's so interesting. And I think there's, it's thing that's coming to mind is it's one thing for parents to say, hey, you can be anything. It's another to learn for yourself that you can, or to figure out what that looks like. And I think it sounds like you went through some kind of, like we're on the topic of transformation, like some kind of
Metamorphosis.
inner transformation to to do that? I'm curious, like, what do you remember about kind of that process or your mindset to kind of allow yourself, I guess, to look in a different direction?
So I don't want to speak negatively about my old career. I was very fortunate, very successful. Like, and I met my husband through our old industry. Some of my best friends in the world are. Uh, but I found that I was again just getting kind of stuck. I was doing something, and every time I was in a new role, I approached it with everything that I had. But over time, I just this sneaky, like this little voice inside of me was like, this isn't it. This isn't it. And I just kind of like pushed it down. And so when the time came that I was like, maybe I'll look at something new, an opportunity would arise, but of course it'd be in the same line of work. And I would justify it somehow. I would say, well, it's a little different because of this, and maybe it'll change. And so I continue to do that throughout my career. And it wasn't until I gave birth to our second child that I got laid off while I was on maternity leave. There were layoffs across the country. And that ended up being such an incredible gift to me because it allowed me to take a step back. And fortunately, I have an incredible partner with my husband. And financially, I recognize we were able to make this decision. Not everyone has this, but I was able to completely switch gears and go after something that felt a little more fulfilling. And so miraculously, I found Copia. And to be perfectly frank, the first week I was in Gap. I was at the Gap headquarters in San Francisco, and I was on whichever floor with the cafeteria. And we were meeting with the San Francisco Department of Environment and a couple of other government entities and the culinary staff. And we're sitting there and we're in the back of the kitchen, and everyone's got their hairnets on and their clipboards. And just the year prior, I had been on the, call it 18th floor, negotiating a multi-million-dollar contract. And here I am in the kitchen talking about food waste. And I had this moment going, what did I do? Because of the social expectations and misnomers that are out there. And I had just taken a step back in my career financially. And now I was working with a whole nother subset of stakeholders. And I sat back, I thought, oh gosh, did I make the right decision? And I could tell you what, Natalie, thank God I got through that day, because what an eye opener for me. What an eye opener that, like, at the end of the day, there's so much more to business and out there and problem solving and impact you can make in this world if you allow yourself to kind of shut out, stereotypes or misnomers. And I can't tell you, I think food waste is the sexiest thing ever right now. Like, let's solve this. I can't stop talking about it. This is a very real problem. Like, no one, you grew up, at least in my generation, talking about the trash man. And it's like, yes, I want to talk to every person that works at a waste management company. I want to understand what the impact is at these landfills. And I'm going on a tangent, and you can tell that I'm passionate about this, but there's so much good that we can do. And I'm grateful that my path led me to where I am today. And it wasn't just a clean cut way, but it was absolutely worth it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And I love the message around like being okay shedding expectations of others, and that actually leads you to this kind of like mission-driven work.
Thanks, Natalie. I have to say, you have a gift of eloquently summarizing my rambles. So thank you.
Very interesting things that you're sharing. So thank you. While we're talking about transformation, I'd love to hear a little bit of like, what are the transformations that like customers are going through, but we can answer either on the business side or the nonprofit side, like what's happening in their world that's kind of forcing them to change.
Well, there are some legislations that are forcing businesses to think about food donations. So, like in the state of California, there's SB 1383. It's an organics law that's now requiring businesses to donate their surplus, businesses of a certain size and volume. New York is now implementing laws. And so California is always first. So these are more sticks when you think about like the carrot or the stick scenario that are being presented to businesses now. But ideally, there's enough carrot there that businesses will do it on their own. But the challenges that they have to overcome are a few. One, the reality is when a business thinks about a donation program without knowing about Copia or how simple it can be, naturally they're going to think, what a wonderful idea. Number 38 on my list today, maybe 72 on my list tomorrow, because I'm thinking about rising costs, with labor and ingredients and labor retention and all the things that are keeping my business afloat. And I've tried to donate in the past and it's not easy. So that's always a hurdle, is like helping them understand that a donation program actually directly impacts their P&L, their bottom line, directly impacts their employee retention, and all of the other benefits, right? And it's super, super simple. And you don't need to change, even though we're a technology company, you don't need to change your operations to accommodate this. So like, I think that there's a mindset switch that is a challenge that we're, now slowly starting to come out of with a lot of customers, or a lot of businesses are seeing. And then also like consumers are demanding this. So consumers are asking these businesses to represent the values that they have, because this is where they're putting their money. And so sustainability, again, has always been a nice to have, but businesses are asking. And forgive me, I just went on another tangent on you, Natalie, and I've lost track of what I needed to tell you, which are some of the challenges, right? Yeah. So there's the stick, there's the carrot. They get to do good. They're coming around to it.
Yeah, yeah. Which, I'm thinking about, like, really you need to educate the market, right? There is the stick and the carrot in the regulatory environment, but those perceptions that it's harder than it is. You need to really change your processes or all of that. It's like any kind of emerging or disruptive technology that you have to kind of break people's sort of normal way of thinking and say there is a better way to do this, or right, there's a solution that you might not know that exists that can support you. And I think that's like very pervasive across different like areas of technology.
I think anybody that's first to market, I mean, think about Uber, the idea of getting in a stranger's car and then going somewhere with them instead of a car with the certified taxi, was just like, what? We're going to do this. And then once we got, comfortability with it, and it was a disruption completely to the transportation industry, we're trying to do that with supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Because
very
it's necessary.
yeah. Wonderful. Well, Kimberly, we're talking a little bit about your leadership and kind of the career journey that you took. I'm curious, knowing everything you know now, like what advice would you have given your younger self in your beginning of your leadership roles?
Well, going back to what I just said a moment ago about making that switch, I'd love to think that I could do it earlier, but I don't know if I would have had the tools and resources available to be successful if I tried earlier. So I'm grateful for the journey that I had. So I don't think I needed to change earlier. I think shedding the expectations, going back to how you so eloquently, summarized earlier, like that's really what it was. Like I was fearful. I was beholden to these self-induced expectations that were just, of my own doing. So I think really listening to that little voice, going back to that, giving that a little bit louder of a, or louder of a voice, or a stronger listen, probably would have helped me a lot younger. Yeah, that's for my own personal growth. Like if I could go back, but God bless the broken roads, right?
Yep. Yep. No, I think that's great advice. It's something that I think I know resonates with me, and I'm sure will resonate with a lot of our listeners as well. So, Kimberly, as we're wrapping up today's conversation, can you let our listeners know how they can reach you if they want to get in touch?
Sure. You can check out Copia online, www.gocopia.com. You can also download our app if you just wanted to be able to donate. No strings attached. You have a moment where you've got surplus. You can download our app on the Apple or Google store. And then, of course, you can always reach out to us via email, partnerships@gocopia.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Well, it's been really great to have you on the podcast.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. And a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to you as well. And thank you so much to everybody listening. I know I loved hearing about so much of what Kimberly had to share. And so if today gave you, our listeners, any valuable insights, and I'm sure that it did, please share this with someone. Spreading this kind of knowledge and information really helps all of us grow as leaders and helps us drive innovation and transformation in our organization. So thanks again, Kimberly. And this has been another amazing conversation on Shift and Thrive. See you all next time. That's a wrap for this week's episode. For show notes and more, visit shiftandthrivepodcast.com. A special thank you to our sponsor, Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service marketing agency to help B2B companies fuel their growth. For more information on Magnitude and to get your complimentary transformation readiness assessment, visit magnitudeconsulting.com/getready. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.